Good morning, my creative friends, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and Painting in Your PJs is all about using art as a creative practice for self-discovery, for personal growth, and for play. So today's theme is about watercolor play and how this can be a really relaxing activity. All month long, on Painting in Your PJs Live, I am doing 21 days of intuitive art inspired by the prompts in our brand new 118 prompts for creative self-reflection from our creative self-care bundle. The link to that bundle is in the description of this video. So welcome if you're here on YouTube, welcome if you're over on Facebook. I won't be seeing comments on Facebook, but I will go check them later, or come join the live party over on YouTube as well. And the prompt that I chose for today is, how strong is your work ethic and does it need improvement? And I almost burst out laughing out loud when I saw this particular prompt. I'm just moving things around on my screen here. Bear with me for just a minute. Almost laughed out loud when I saw this prompt because, get my chat going here. Because my work ethic is too strong. I work too much. I tend to put other things and people and projects first, often at my own expense. It's part of why I started this series, because of my own daily commitment to a creative practice. I'm down here every morning creating anyway, and so I thought I might as well do it in community. Right, Kim? Yes, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera here. Welcome if you're joining me live. If you're watching the replay, type replay in the comments so that I know you stopped by and I can come and say hello. If you're brand new here, if you'd hit the subscribe button, and if you click the little bell on YouTube, this is not on Facebook, but on YouTube, you'll get notified as well when I go live. Good morning, Tori. And if you like what I share today, hit the like button. That helps other people know what to expect. I'm trying to get better about all the things about asking for support. I did a whole page last week on my challenges around asking for support. But the more that you guys let me know that you're here watching, the more excited I get to continue to show up with you live here on YouTube and Facebook. All right, so all month long, we are creating a circle journal here, and I'm really loving how this journal is coming out. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. And each day of this journal represents a different prompt. And I haven't bound this together yet, but I'm thinking when I finish these few little pages, I am going to bind this section together and then start a new section. And I had this page here that I decided I wanted to work on today. I have three more pages in this little section. And when I saw the prompt, I was already thinking about what could I do with watercolor and how can I make this playful. And when I was flipping through the prompts and I saw the prompt, which was, how is your work ethic and does it need improvement, I kind of laughed out loud. So I hosted an in-person retreat yesterday here in my house. We made a book and we did some visioning and reflections for the coming year. It was really fun. And one of the things that came up, so I'm just going to get some color down on this page here. And I'm just working with a primary palette of red, blue, and yellow today. They're a little bit different than the rest of the palette I've been working with. And I'm wondering, actually, I may change up that blue and get a different blue, but I'm going to get some yellow down on this page right now. And this is going to get covered up. I've already done some journaling. So one of the women talked about, how do you make time for self-care? How do you make time for your morning routine when you feel guilty? So she owns a successful company, and she said, when you feel guilty about, not being the first one in the office or the last one to leave? And it was such a great question. And so when I saw this prompt, I had to laugh because it was such a big part of our discussion yesterday. And as someone who owns my own business, I've worked for myself for over 20 years. I've had multiple different businesses, and you can see I'm just simply putting color on the page. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing here. And I'm going to open this up flat. And most of this is going to get covered up, but I just wanted to put some watercolor down. And what I've noticed and tried to be better about, although my husband complains all the time that I'm not very good about it, that I work too much. Like I taught a full day workshop. I spent most of Saturday preparing for that workshop, cleaning the house and making food, and it was all really fun for me. It was super playful. It didn't really feel like work. And he's like, you don't schedule the Monday off or the Friday off, right? You're not good about taking time. So I was so much better this weekend. On Friday, I had a girlfriend came to the studio and we just played all day. And then we had a couple of friends over for dinner that evening. So I went into Saturday pretty relaxed. I'm taking most of today off until our Sacred Circles call this afternoon. And I'm driving down to Denver to have brunch with a couple of friends. So I'm trying to get better at how I choose to spend my time, because I know that when I spend more time, watercolor is so much fun, in creative play, then the better I feel, the more relaxed I am, the more grounded I am. So those colors are super fun, and I'm thinking I want to get some of this turquoise blue instead of that ultramarine, because this is closer to the palette that I've been using. So I love Daniel Smith watercolors. My friend Andrea turned me on to these, and I'm getting quite a nice collection of them. Just periodically I'll go buy a couple. So I'm building them up because they are on the pricey side, but there's a ton of watercolor in this tube. They last forever. And after everyone left, one of my friends stayed and we were having a glass of wine, and I was doing some demos of different papers and different watercolor, and good watercolor makes a big difference. And I also have all kinds of watercolors because it's fun to experiment and try. Sorry, I got distracted by that little bit of red flowing there. So what I want to do today, so I did some journaling about my work ethic doesn't need improvement. In fact, I would say it needs to go the opposite direction, that I need to settle a little bit and figure out for this coming year how not to overfill my time. And what I know about myself is that I often overfill my time because I love people. And so I let my calendar, and I work from home alone. It's just me and my hubby. And so I can overfill my calendar with people because I love people so much. Okay, that ended up being a really fun abstract page. So what I wanted to do was to just have some fun playing with watercolor. There was another woman there that said, actually a couple of them, it was the biggest group we've ever had in the studio. I had 12 people in the studio. It was amazing. And my cats, I can hear them over there, still knocking all the supplies left on the table. So I had all these scrappy bits left from the journals that we made and the pages that I cut for people. So I think I want to do some kind of unfolding pages in the journal. And I want them to, looking for a blank circle, I want them to stick out a little bit so it'll become like a tab, but maybe not too much. And I love watching what watercolor does on the page mixed with water. And so before I got on the call this morning, I played, so this was just this same mixed media paper. This was a piece of Bristol vellum. I wanted to see what the color would do. And so I had some messy fun getting the paper painty and trying some different kinds of paper. And I decided to go with the mixed media paper. and I have a bunch of it. So I wanted to create just some long, fun strips here. So this is a great thing to do when you are doing a project and you end up with scrappy bits like this sort of laying around. Have some fun figuring out how can you incorporate them into other projects. And they don't have to all be folded the same, but what I love about this is when it gets tucked into the journal, I'm going to have a little bit of pieces hanging out over here. They might even get some ribbon attached. But now I have these long pieces of watercolor, and I need more space this morning. Okay, so which one? This is the one. Okay, so this is the back piece. And I'm just going to write back on there because that's the piece that's going to get glued on to my book. And so I don't need to paint that piece, but I can paint both the front and the back sides of these other pieces. And they're going to get attached together at the end, but I think we can paint them together. And when we give ourselves permission to play with color, with paint, it helps us to relax, to calm down. We spent a whole hour, maybe even more, at our workshop yesterday just coloring the covers. I should go grab the covers and show you guys. They came out really pretty. And so I'm going to start by, my water's already a little dirty here, just putting a circle on the page. Then I'm going to drop some color in that circle. And for me, it's always ends up being magic watching that watercolor, zoom in a little bit, flow across the page. And what feels magical about it is where I put the watercolor stays there, right? The watercolor stays there. And what's going to happen now if I just touch the tip of that turquoise? To that yellow, we're going to start to get those beautiful watercolor blooms, and I love how that happens. And I'm just going to fill the page with color and shape. So there's no intention here, there's no destination, there's no goal. And oftentimes when we sit down to create, we think, oh, I have to make something, and I have to make something pretty, just like when, where, thank you, just like when, where they are pretty colors. When we think about, I don't have time to sit down for even 10 minutes and put color on paper. There's so much to do. I have too much to do. I can't possibly take that little bit of time for myself. And you can. It doesn't take a lot of time. It takes 5-10 minutes of just putting color on paper. And then I'll hear people say, but then I have to drag all the supplies out. I don't have time to drag everything out, to make space to create, and then put it all away at the end. The thing that changed my creative practice for the better was when I carved out a dedicated space for my creativity. At one point, that was a little table in a guest room. Then I took over a whole guest room, but then I'd have to move out of the guest room when guests came. And then eventually I took over a bigger room in our house, the kids' playroom, as they got older and were spending more time in their bedrooms on their own anyway, as teenagers will do. And what I found is even if it was just a small table in the corner of a room, that I could leave a project out. So it was easy to come back and just to sit for a couple of minutes and put color on paper. And for me personally, this is how I love to start my days, with a simple color warm up like this. And once this is dry, I'm going to come back with some colored pencil and maybe some pen and add some more marks and patterns. But what I want you to think about is, what stops you from making time for play? Is it that your work ethic is too strong? That you feel guilty if you're not doing something that feels more productive? And I would argue that this is the most productive way I can start my day, because it makes me feel so good. And this is so simple, and yet it's so pleasing to the eye. So let's see on this one, maybe we can get some different shapes going. And I'm going to continue with this same palette. So this is just inexpensive drawing paper. I don't even think it's a mixed media paper. It's a pretty lightweight paper, so it won't take a ton of water. So I have to be a little mindful of the paper, which is fine. And it's scrappy bits, so I don't care about the outcome. If I get this all painted and then discover that I don't like the way it looks, I'm not attached. I'm also not worried that I'm wasting my really fancy paints. Could I have done this with a less expensive set of paint for playtime? Sure, I could have, but it doesn't create the same magic on the page as these gorgeous Daniel Smith colors do. And I find that we tend to get really caught in our heads about what's okay, and that culturally we've been raised as women to put others first. Because of the Industrial Revolution, we have been educated to put work first, life second. I love the younger generations that are coming in and refusing to do that, that they're putting life first. And I'm learning how to do that as I get closer and closer to my 60s. I'll be 59 in January. It's interesting. I thought I would get a different green here where that turquoise and yellow are mixing, but this is such a light blue that there's not a lot of contrast there. So I'm wondering if I just come in with a tiny little bit of this ultramarine and maybe add a little fun contrast in there, what might happen? Get a little more variation. And again, this is just about play, no destination, nothing I have to do. There's nowhere I have to be right here, anywhere right now, other than just right here with all of you. And then I get to go get dressed and head off for a fun brunch with friends. And these little pages are just making me happy. The palette is making me happy. The whole practice is brightening my spirits. I also love this because I could decide to journal on the backside of all of this. Yeah, look at that, the gorgeous, oops, let me move this up a little bit so you can see that bottom one. Look at that, magic. I could journal on the back side of this. I could add more color and marks. But this feels super fun. I can let it dry and then I can come back and add even more color to it as well. And I love creating things that fold and unfold and flip in and out of my journals. Might be fun to cut some of these out and create some little peekaboo windows. And watercolor is not my primary medium, but it's often a fun go-to when I do want to just play, let go. It does such different things than acrylic does. Getting some nice purple happening there, got some different green happening there. What would happen if I put a little spritz of water on these and let them just get even a little bit messier? You can see I've got some big puddles of watercolor lingering on the page. And I'm going to start to dry this up. So just with the tip of a paper towel, you can just gently dab a paper towel in that watercolor and it will absorb all of that color. And now I know that these are going to dry lighter than they went on, which is great because then I can add color, more color, or other kinds of marks to the circles. So I'm going to hit this with the dryer. I may let this other one dry on its own. It can be tricky to dry watercolor, so bear with me for a minute as I get this dry. And it's only tricky because it's so wet, unlike acrylic, which tends to dry really fast. I really loved what happened right here. We have this really interesting shape. So when possible, it's great to let the watercolor dry naturally because you will get more interesting puddles and marks and variations. So I'm loving some of what's going on up here. So I may let that piece dry naturally. When I picked it up and moved it, I got more movement happening. So this one's going to be gorgeous when it's done. And in the interest of time, wanted to be able to keep working on this one to show where I would go with it. And what I'm thinking is some of these need some words and maybe some marks, some color on color. Let's see, where'd my little sample one go? That's pretty good. So I'm thinking, what if I come in and just, again, this is about play, right? There's no method here. There's no need to go anywhere. And when I let myself play, I let go of attachment to outcomes. And part of the reason that we get so caught up in what we think we should be doing or what are the things that are more productive is because we're overly worried about what other people think about us. This was one of the things that definitely came up yesterday. You know, what will my staff think about me if I go to the gym in the morning and I'm not the first one in the office? I've heard things like, what will my spouse think if they come home and dinner's not ready, or the house is a mess, or I spend all day writing? So one of my favorite books that I read every couple of years, and it's been coming up a lot lately. And so I'm thinking it might be time to read it again, is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he tells this story about a woman who wanted to write a book. I'm going to come in and just do a little playful mark making. I'm using my Stabilo Marxol so I could add water to that if I wanted to. And she would spend all day cleaning the house and then she'd be too tired to work on her book. And Gay Hendricks calls this an upper limit problem. It's funny, this one looks kind of like a watermelon or maybe a pomegranate. And he helped her see that spending all day cleaning her house instead of working on her creative project was a form of fear and resistance to actually sitting down to do the work to write her book. And she said, but what will my husband think if he comes home and the house isn't clean? My husband personally wouldn't care. I have a great husband and I appreciate that, but we sort of often imagine that these expectations that really aren't true. And what Gay Hendricks, helped this person see was that her husband would be super excited and proud of her for getting her book written. And she went on to write many, many books because she put her writing first. The house still got clean. She still got everything done. And so part of the conversation around work ethic is, what are you putting ahead of yourself and what matters to you and what those projects are that you say are important and that you want to get done. And yet they tend to fall year after year to the back burner. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to leave this planet with any regrets. And for the last couple of years, I've been saying that I'm going to write my next book. And I haven't written it yet. And usually, so I've written a dissertation and I have also 3 other books, 1 with a partner and 2 on my own. Interesting adding the black to these. It's definitely a different look. There's just creating a lot more drama on the page, which from a reflection perspective is, okay, this is a topic that there's energy and that little bit of drama there for me, and I need to be mindful of that. So I've been saying that I'm going to write a book, but the topic hasn't come clear. Once the topic is clear, then I tend to write really fast, and I've had ideas for topics, and I keep waiting for that idea to just pop in. And then I realize that I'm putting all of my energy into my visual art and I've been neglecting my writing, and I love to write. So coming back to my own creative practice of write, paint, reflect, where I'm making time every morning to do a little bit of writing, even if that little bit of writing is just this small amount on this little circle page that I'm reconnecting to the energy of words, which matters a lot to me personally. That matters a lot to me personally. I love how this page dried. And I'm also present to what projects would I need to say no to for next year in order to make more time for my writing. So one simple little prompt like, what's your work ethic like, Minette? Oh my gosh, look at that. That was so unintentional, and look how perfectly that worked out. I love it. One little prompt inspired me to think about all of these things, and it's what to me is the benefit and value of creative self-care. I am loving this new book of 118 self-reflection prompts in our self-care bundle because it is inviting me to go on a pretty inspiring and powerful, inspiring to me personally, I don't need it to be inspiring for others, journey of end of year self-reflection and thinking about what do I want to be different for next year. Actually, I think, let's see. I think this is probably, actually, I think it folds this way. Yeah, so it fits in the book. Because if I fold it, so these papers were already folded, so I'm just mindful of that. If I fold it here, it's going to stick out of my book too much. But that's cool how that worked out. All right, so what I'm feeling like is I want some words on here. And I didn't quite let this dry, so you can see I've got some little bit of bleed happening here. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit before it gets too grungy. But I think I want some words in here to remind me. And I was watching someone else's video this morning, and she was playing with watercolor, and her word was grace. And I'm thinking, where do I want that word to go? Feels like it wants to go right here. And oftentimes we spend so much time and energy in blame, shame, self-criticism for what we're not getting done, when what's needed is to give ourselves some grace, to practice self-compassion. In our work that we did yesterday, we talked a lot about compassion. And we can have often so much compassion for others, for the world, for everything that's happening in the world, and that we forget to pause and extend that self-compassion, extend compassion to ourselves. And the other thing that we talked about yesterday, a theme that came up for many of the women, was trust. And I think in the context of trusting ourselves, trusting that there is enough time, trusting that we will benefit from a session of creative play rather than be judged or get behind, that it will actually boost our energy, and help us get more done throughout the day. One of the things that I would love to learn and get better at is lettering. I like my own handwriting, but it would be fun to learn some lettering styles. But that's an example of, oh, wouldn't it be fun if, and then I go down a rabbit hole and it pulls me away from, but wait, Minette, you said you were going to write a book. But these letters were asking for maybe just a little darkening and line weight. I love, love, love these pens, the Uniball Air Micro. Right, and Tori, you're retired, right? And there's so many irons in the fire, and I think part of that is there's so many things that we want to do, and there's so many things we feel like we have to do, and it's this constant balancing act of finding time for all the things. And at some point that gets exhausting. And then we have to go back and say, well, what do I value most? What's going to serve me most? What is going to give me the most energy to be able to care for myself and for others as well? Right. This idea that we have to make up for all the years that we were working. And believe me, I'm a big proponent of don't wait, right? When people say, I'm going to wait till I retire to do this, life's too short. And no regrets either, right? Because I have that same feeling of why did I not make time for this throughout my whole life, right? And I made some time for it when my kids were little. I would channel all my creativity into the holiday season. We'd be making cookies, or we would make handmade gifts for people, or I'd make, handmade ornaments for the tree. And I didn't believe I had the time to do it throughout the rest of the year. And now I realize, okay, Minette, if I don't make this time now, we don't know what's going to happen. Okay, super happy with this really simple, playful little thread of watercolor play, lines and marks. And I'm going to get my glue stick here and let's glue this into the book and see what happens. So this one is still pretty wet and working its magic. Well, it's probably dry enough. Maybe I can hit it with the dryer. Because I'm thinking it's going to be, and maybe not, maybe they're going to end up being two different things. But my thought was it would be fun to have one really long string, but I don't know that I need that. So I think I'll save that other page for something else. And I'm going to let that one dry naturally and probably have some fun adding some Zentangle patterns. All right. And I love it. I got glue too far on that backside because it feels like now that there's like little secret messages in there. And it makes me curious if I want to, what do I want to do on the backside of this? So we've got this white bit here, but I love the magic of opening this bit up. And I might even cut some of the bits of this that I love and just glue it onto the back here and call it done. So that would be an option. Yeah, definitely don't want it to stick out that far. So I was intentional with how I folded it to fit. Definitely want something here, but I'm not sure what that is yet. And I'm kind of wanting to maybe put a little tab, a cute little tab on the end here that I could put a little ribbon on. I don't want to punch a hole in this because I don't want it to go right through my words there. And that ribbon, that hole could get punched here. Do I still have some lace sitting here? I don't have any ribbon, but I still... So this is the fun, fiddly, fussy part, and I love this part. So I'm thinking maybe just one little loop of lace tied in there would be super cute, hanging out of the journal. And of course, I don't have a hole punch here, so let's just, I'm going to carefully, I don't even have an awl sitting right here. I'm going to get that hole started carefully. And I can always neaten it up later or reinforce it as needed. Tie a little bit of lace. And then I get to decide, do I want the lacy bits hanging out? No, I think I want the loop hanging out. Which means I'm going to knot it in the back here. I don't want it to be too long. And I want it to stay kind of flat, so I'm thinking I'm actually going to maybe just glue that to the back, or I might even take it over to my sewing machine and stitch that across the top of there so it stays nice and tight. Yeah, if I stitch it on there, it's going to stay, and then I don't have to worry about this hole either. So after I'm done here, I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and stitch it up. All right, where's the rest of our book? So I always come back to putting all of the pages together to see what's happening and how it's unfolding. Good morning, Yvonne. And so love that little secret pull out. And I wasn't sure if I felt like I was going to need to do something else in the background of the page. I really love the background, so I don't need to do anything there. But I am feeling like I want some color here, and I definitely want some color here so that it feels like this is integrated. And I'm also almost feeling like I want that to be rounded off just a little bit so it kind of matches the edges. So what do we got in the middle there? Somewhere I have a fun little corner rounder clippy tool, so I'll go grab some other tools. Okay, so thinking, what do I want to do on this side? I think I want to do something completely different. Like this feels perfect and complete as it is. And I've already done some journaling and I have some nice words here. So I think I'm just going to get some more watercolor down on the page, and maybe I don't need to do anything other than just let it have some color. I love this turquoise watercolors. The Sleeping Beauty turquoise is very similar to my turquoise blue paint, and I'm getting already an interesting resist on here from the glue stick that came onto the page. And I might even just continue that color over there, so that's fun. Never thought of using glue stick as a resist, so I just learned something new and worth trying later. And I'm wondering if I still have a little bit of oil pastel floating around over here because I loved how the oil pastel made such a great resist. And I don't, they got moved somewhere else. All right. So this time, rather than circles and shapes, I'm just going to do stripes of color. And see where it gets me to. Let those stripes bleed. I think we'll put a little bit of that gorgeous yellow. So this is a Hansa yellow that I love. Come in with just a little bit of that ultramarine. And I love playing with primary colors. I've done that before on the show. When I'm playing with primary colors, I don't overthink things, right? I don't have to get too focused. I know what the colors are going to do with each other. All right. Again, this type of watercolor play is so simple. It makes me happy. It lifts my spirits. I've got now this fun little pull-out page, and I might even come back to this page later once it's dry and add some writing to it, or it almost feels like it's asking for a little bit of collage material. And I'm going to hit this with the dryer and see if I can get this dried up a little bit, which gives me also a minute to think about where I'm going to go. Love how these colors blended. I ended up with almost a purple or magenta over here with that ultramarine blue, and I think that's a Mayan red. Look at all these fun feathers and shapes, the resist from the glue stick. It's pooling here in the fold. Okay, dry enough. Thank you, Tori. I'm super grateful that you guys continue to come back and watch me play. I appreciate your time. And look what happened. I got all kinds of, because I got so much watercolor on that other side there, I'm getting watercolor everywhere. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And what I love about watercolor is that it's pretty easy to clean up. So if you feel like you've gotten color where you didn't want the color, it's pretty easy to come back and clean that up with just a wet brush. I got to be a little bit careful here because that Uniball Air Micro is permanent when it's completely dry. I don't know if it's completely dry yet. And I'm kind of looking at the red on there going, I actually like it, but I don't love it up here because I really liked keeping that blue and yellow really clean. But I can just clean that up a little bit and bring in a little of that blue again, and that just disappeared that red. I've got some that bled over to the edges here, so I can just take and wash some of that out. So it's amazing. You may not get all of it gone, but you can really push it back and clean it up. And personally, I love a good grungy page, and so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I love how this page ended up coming together. Good morning, Blanca. Yep, just finishing up. I'm glad you slept in. Great self-care. So I think I'm wanting to bring some of the blue back here. And what I'm present to is this is the Stabilo Marxall, and I need to be mindful I don't activate that or I'm going to end up with a muddy mess. So maybe I'm just going to brighten up the bottom of this. One of the ways to get those more vibrant colors with watercolor is to be patient and let it layer up. And I want to push back some of this. I don't mind the red there, but I want blue to be more dominant than the red. Now I'm looking at it going, it might need some pops of white, but for now I think I'm complete. I can feel where I get into fussy mode and then it's no longer play. I start to get into that space where I'm judging it, trying to make it better, and that means it's time to stop because my inner critic is coming out and wanting to assess and perfect. And my intention for this morning was to just get some color and marks on page. And I don't want to lose that. So I'm going to dry this up a bit. And then I'm going to be done for today. This one still isn't dry because it had a lot of paint, but I really love some of the blooms and flow on this one. All right. I'm seeing that I got some watercolor paint on my lady over here. No problem. Right? No problem. So maybe she's going to have a little bit of red hair. Hardly noticeable at all. All right, let's see how we did. So this is going all the way down here. It's going to see what a difference it made just bringing in that pop of color. I know that inner critic, such a bugaboo. And, I always think that I'm making peace with that inner critic, and yet it still rears its ugly head. So just by adding that little pop of green, so it's integrated with this page, and that little pop of blue, it's integrated with this page. So I'm going to come over here, put the whole book back together. This is the fun part for me. Each day as I add a layer and a page is continuing to watch that whole journey continue to unfold. I am going to stitch that little bit of lace, and that's all this needed was color, right? It doesn't need anything else, right? It just needed color because most of the work was done here on this page. All right, my friends, I think that's it for today. I will see you again live tomorrow at 7 a.m. Mountain Time with a new prompt and some more creative playtime. As always, thanks for joining me live. Thanks for catching the replay. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs Live, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.